I'm actually looking at the least sporty I've ever looked on my channel. Primarily because I had an appointment and I thought I'm going to treat myself and put actual clothes on, but also Nana Pat knitted me a jumper and sent it and it arrived today. So I couldn't resist. Anyway, I realised I absolutely haven't done a 42-mile ultra race recap. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet, mainly because I've forgotten a lot of it, but because I've left it too long. Typical ADHD behaviour, but also because I just don't want to sit and ramble on for ages because that'd be really boring. But essentially, I went into this race feeling more confident than I have felt with my running in a really long time. I think it was the 25-kilometre in Leeds. I felt horrendous. I was really not well that time. And then obviously I've been dabbling in the triathlons and doing that kind of stuff. So other than the leg injury, which is still very much a present today, I felt good. I'd been running consistently. Now, I've just looked at my Strava actually to see how consistently, and I still wasn't running any more than 25 kilometres a week, but that is a good indication of how often I was running prior to that, if that is my level of consistency. But I think the difference was that I was going to the gym, I was doing my strength stuff. We were moving house, selling houses, sorting dogs, dealing with a heat wave. There's been a lot, and there still is a lot going on. But yeah, for some reason, I'd been hitting the runs, doing the sessions, and I was doing a lot of more speed sessions to feel a bit more confident. And I felt good. My easy pace was back down to kind of 4:30, 4:40s, and I was holding that comfortably. My heart rate always sits high. I don't think I've maybe mentioned it a couple of times, but my zone 2 is a heart rate of kind of 150 to 100 and maybe 140 to 160 something. That's my zone 2. Yeah, so I went into this race thinking, do you know what? I am just going to actually give this a go. I knew the elevation scale and I knew it was flat, 2 pretty big hills, flat, hill, flat. So I had a pacing strategy because none of my races are flat. I always run mountains. So I knew I wanted to run kind of a minimum of a 5:30 pace for that first 14 kilometres, which I did. What I didn't realise, and I definitely should have thought about, was the terrain. So the first 14 kilometres essentially were on the beach. So yes, it was flat, but it was flat on a beach. Now it wasn't impossible. It wasn't hard. It wasn't like running on squidgy sand. It was a pretty firm ground, but I knew that it was going to have taken out of my legs quite a lot at the very beginning. So I went with it and some, because actually I got chatting to a guy. It was his first ultra. We were just chinwagging, as you do, running along, and then I realised he was a road marathoner and I was running his pace and I thought this was a terrible idea. So I stuck it out for a while because I didn't feel terrible, and I thought, no, this is the race, I'm going to push it. So I probably stayed with him for a lot of it at kind of a 5-minute kilometre pace for that initial bit. Got to checkpoint 1, changed my shoes over. My feet were already wet and sandy and lovely, and I knew this was kind of the first uphills bit, which actually I really appreciated. I forget how much I enjoy hills in races and change of pace and change of terrain. So it was kind of roady, hilly, which was good. I enjoyed that bit. And then into checkpoint 2. Between checkpoint 1 and 2 was the hardest bit. So it was like a little uphill and a little down. No, I can't remember which one. Between 2 checkpoints. No, it was between checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2. It felt like a slog because I didn't see anyone, and it felt like a lot. There was a lot of road. I didn't see anybody, and the downhill from it into checkpoint 3 was full of gates. But the bit where I'd normally be like, oh great, I get to run downhill, I just kept having to stop. So open the gate, get through the gate, shut the gate, open the gate, and there was lots of them because of obviously cattle and sheep and things, which is fine. The views kept me going, which was good. But yeah, at that point I was mentally a bit like, oh my goodness, can I just couldn't get into the flow of it at all. coming into the next checkpoint, which I think that's where the dog was, and I was like, right, I'm just going to enjoy this now because this is the big hill. This was the big hill into checkpoint. I don't know, we're going to ignore checkpoints because I can't remember exactly which one was which, but I got up the big hill and down the big hill, and I could see where, it was the beach, I could see where I was heading, which was the Barmouth Promenade, and I needed to head to the bridge. So this was the big hill, over the top, down, and I could see where I was going, and we'd been there before because that's actually where we'd raced the 25 kilometres in Wales, so I knew exactly what was coming. So yeah, headed up and down over that, and it was about this point I was not able to eat again anymore. So exactly the same thing had happened that had happened at Leeds, where I'd been eating fine, and then just couldn't keep anything. It's not that I was throwing up, I wasn't, I just didn't want to eat anything, which got really hard actually, again. So that was kind of hour 6, I want to say, 5.5, 6. So I managed to drink a little bit of gels, a little bit of water, and just trying to maintain it. When I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. So just trying to maintain small amounts as much as I could, but definitely couldn't eat anything. I don't know when you kind of put it in your mouth and you're like, no, or even near you, your stomach goes, don't do that, actually. So that was hard, that was tough to be experiencing that again. And it also got in my head a little bit like, why is this happening? Because it happened at the last race, but I had a sickness bug at the last race. I didn't have a sickness bug for this one, so there wasn't really an excuse for it. So obviously something was going on, but unbeknown to me what that was, I did manage to discover that Red Bull and full fat Coke, you will have definitely seen in the video, were my lifesavers at that point, i.e. sugar and caffeine were the only things that were keeping me going. Now, coming into checkpoint 4, I had 14 kilometres left, and I knew those last 14 kilometres were flat. I had a sneaking suspicion they were going to be beach, which I now had learnt from the first 14 kilometres. But I came into checkpoint 4 with only 14 kilometres only, with 14 kilometres to run, thinking there was 2 people in front of me. And I say people meaning men. I knew I was first female. I thought there was 2 blokes in front of me to kind of chase down, and secretly that was my goal. My goal was to go and win this race. I got there, got into it, I was still feeling good despite not being able to eat. And the last bit for me is always really nice. Knowing coming to the last checkpoint is always my favourite bit, because I get to just relax then. Like the next time I see people is the end, and that's brilliant. Not because I don't enjoy it at the time, but when you're kind of 6-7 hours in, you want the end. And I came into that checkpoint, and the lady at the checkpoint said, "Oh, he's not that far in front of you." And I was like, "Well, what about the other one?" And they were like, "No, there's only one guy in front of you." So I don't know what happened to that second guy, whether I went past him, he might, I don't know where he went, disappeared. But it was at this point that Dave, what felt like, stared into my soul and said, "Go and effing get him." And I was tired, but I just thought, do you know what have I got to lose now? So I did, and I ran strong away from checkpoint 4, straight towards the beach. There was some pretty horrible up and downs. There was a couple of moments where I got lost, but I got back onto the beach and I could see him, and I could see where he was. I could also see a lot of naked people, because this was happened to be the nudist section. And I just kept chasing up, and it felt like a bit of a mind game, because he looked back and I was still running, which meant he knew I was running. So then he started running, and I didn't want to stop running in case he turned around and saw me stopped running. And it was quite interesting. It was quite a good little thing between us, I guess. Anyway, I caught up with him, and he was like, "You're doing amazing, like, go for it, absolutely killing it." And I was asked, we had a little chat. He'd run out of food, so I actually gave him one of my flapjacks, because I was like, "Look, I can't eat anything." So I don't know if that's horrible. Like, to me, that's a nice thing to do. Maybe you saw that as a bad thing. I don't know. Maybe afterwards. And yeah, so that was it. There was a really fun downhill, which I knew I was going to get some time on him, knowing that he was a road marathoner, knowing he wasn't going to hit those downhills as fast as me. I took full advantage of that. And yeah, I felt really freaking good about it. So I came in first place overall, thrilled, very tired, potentially half an hour later than I wanted or had the time in my head, but absolutely thrilled nonetheless. Battling maximum temperatures, I think it was 31, which was my body temperature from the Garmin, but the air temperatures were kind of 28-ish. There was very little shelter because it was all coastal path, and there was very little breeze, annoyingly, despite being on coastal path. So yeah, something to be super proud of and to take that confidence moving forwards, because I can do it, I know I can do it, and I want to push myself to do it, to start beating the boys more often. I do have a race booked for November, and being that my leg held out, I decided to enter a last minute triathlon at Barla Lake, which will be the next video. But yeah, really pleased with that one. My leg now, I can tell you, because I'm filming this way later and I've already done the Barla triathlon, it needs a rest. So yes, I have a 50k up in Inverness booked for November, although I haven't booked it yet. Planned for November. I'm going to stay with Fiona for a week, and Nana Pat and the boys and stuff, so that'll be lovely. It'll be a lovely holiday anyway. Haven't actually booked the race because I'm waiting to see what my leg does. But in the meantime, we're just getting another consistent block of strength training, rehab, really trying to fix this leg, which essentially means not getting on the bike again for a while. the Barla Lake Triathlon proved that. But if you have held out this long, thank you so much. I am really looking forward to 2026 going forwards with this newfound confidence and that first win off the back of there. Like and subscribe. It just makes me a little bit happy because I really like making these videos. So the next video will be the Barla Lake Triathlon, which was an interesting day out actually. Weather, questionable. Take care.